Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. Big news, I guess you can say, coming out of UFC and WWE. It seems as if the once-a-year payday for Brock Lesnar is going to come into play. Everyone can remember how big of a fiasco Brock going back to UFC for, I believe it was UFC 200 to face Mark Hunt, which I believe still hasn't been figured out in the court of law, with basically Brock winning the fight, then being disqualified from the fight due to the fact that he failed 2 drug tests in the pre-fight and post-fight drug tests that were issued by USADA. Basically, Mark Hunt wanted the winner's purse. They still gave it to Brock Lesnar. He was able to keep it. He was able to keep to pay a fine, which was only a fraction of how much he won, still more than Mark Hunt was paid for the fight. And now it looks as if going to be able to come back and just sort of skip all of the rules that there are in UFC and USADA. Everyone knew that when UFC was sold last summer after UFC 200 that things were going to drastically change. And as you can see, the way that they draw fights has been changing. Conor McGregor hasn't really left UFC, but is now going to fight the I guess you can say the dream fight, even though it's going to be held in boxing. Conor is not leaving, but Conor is jumping to boxing because of the fact that he can make a larger payday boxing than he can having a UFC fight, which sort of makes it like WWE's paydays here, UFC is here, and now boxing is here. Setting the 3 different stages of why Brock would want to jump and do this one-time fight, where basically he'll make more fighting for UFC this one time than he would doing anything else. If you play by the rules, the way that it's drawn up is that Brock Lesnar's suspension would have started the weekend after 4th of July, the day of UFC 200. He would have to sit out 1 exact year, but to take himself out of the USADA drug testing program, he had to put himself into retirement, which would have put a freeze on his suspension. What will UFC do knowing that Brock Lesnar is going to be coming back? One of the biggest names they've ever had. Still is very popular in the world because of his name in professional wrestling. Coming back and wrestling for Vince with WrestleMania and other events like that. So I guess you can say the way this all comes out is that as of right now, it's still unknown what the main event is going to be for SummerSlam. Some people have thought it's going to be Brock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Some people have said it's going to be Brock versus Roman Reigns, which is going to be pushed up into SummerSlam, and that's where the change is going to happen. Then that would lead us to maybe Roman Reigns versus John Cena at WrestleMania 34. We'll have to see if that's what they do. If they do that, I mean, that means Roman Reigns beats Triple H, he beats John Cena, he beats The Undertaker, all at WrestleMania in a matter of 3 years, and people are still not going to like him. So that gives you what it is. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but at the same time, that with the amount of money that UFC paid to buy that company, they have to have big fights. As of right now, Conor McGregor leaving, Ronda Rousey sitting on the sidelines. That's 2 of their biggest names not being involved in the sport. They still have a lot of big names in there that are a draw, and it seems like there's a UFC pay-per-view almost each and every week as far as fights on Fox Sports 1, so they're not hurting for money. But bringing somebody in like Brock does make a whole lot of sense, but it does really throw the rule book out the window. I know that I was wrong when basically the rumors came out about the Brock returning to UFC 200. So I don't want to say that this is 100% false, because I did honestly say that there's no way in the world this is going to happen. I think this is going to happen. I just don't know how UFC is going to be able to talk their way out of going around the rules. So we'll see more to come on this story. I'll see you guys down the road.